What is the ancestral plane? And maybe more importantly, can it get me arrested? Black Panther, Marvel's latest blockbuster, is something really reminiscent of The Lion King, with a twist on the sins of the father concept, and what might be done to fix those problems. In that story, our hero T'Challa is seen traveling to a place beyond our world, the Ancestral Plane, something his people believe is the place former rulers go after death. Current kings and queens can travel there using a magical heart-shaped herb, and seek guidance from former kings of old. Probably sounds pretty cool, right? I mean, come on. That's just about the best kind of guidance you can get, the ultimate hindsight. But maybe the ancestral plane isn't so cool. Like, make a PSA and show it to rowdy high schoolers, uncool. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what? The herb and the plane are both magical, not some pot pipe. What's uncool about magic? That's a good question. Let me explain. The practice of using supposedly magical items to seek out knowledge isn't one invented by Marvel, not by far. This kind of thing can be seen all over the world. From witch doctors to medicine men, from oracles to witches, there's always been this cultural idea that certain items can reveal things to you that nothing else in the physical world can. So before we get ahead of ourselves, let's ask the question. What exactly is that practice? It's called shamanism. No one can really yet pinpoint exactly when shamanism started. Hell, it may not even be possible to observe when it started in human history. We recently observed chimps possibly engaging in this practice, and if that's anything to go off of, we started shamanism way before we could even comprehend the idea of history. Most scholars and historians agree that the first well-documented case of shamanism can be found in the history of a Siberian tribe called the Tungus people. In fact, the word shaman, the name for someone who practices shamanism, comes from a Tungus word saman, which meant someone who's above or raised. Clearly, the Tungus thought pretty highly of shamans. The word saman has also been related to other meanings in the Tungus language, such as to know, another indication that shamans were considered to be people who had a higher understanding of things than others. But what does it mean to be a shaman to practice shamanism exactly? Again, the Tungus, as well as other tribes, give us some pretty good insight. Across cultures, shamans gain higher knowledge through certain seemingly spiritual practices. A lot of these rituals do differ from each other, but they all have the same fundamental idea in them: altered states of mind. The definition of shamanism might be best summed up in the words of Michael Harner, an anthropologist who not only spent a significant amount of time with tribes in the Amazon, but became a shaman in one himself. He wrote that, basically, a shaman is a man or a woman who enters an altered state of consciousness at will to contact and utilize an ordinarily hidden reality to acquire knowledge, power, and to help other persons. Another good definition that really helps drive the point of shamanism home was written by Roger Walsh, who studied shamanism a ton in his time. Shamanism might be defined as a family of traditions whose practitioners focus on voluntarily entering altered states of consciousness, in which they experience themselves or their spirits traveling to other realms at will, and interacting with other entities in order to serve the community. So that's the goal of a shaman. They use seemingly magical or spiritual methods of understanding the world on a much higher level than others, which allows them to help people more efficiently. Pretty straightforward, but also pretty hard to swallow. You're telling us that there are actually people who can straight up use magic to help others? Well, no. They might help others, but it's certainly not magic. It's science. Like I said before, most, if not all, shamanic cultures use different practices to obtain their spiritual goals. However, there is one underlying concept that just about all of those cultures use: hallucinogens. For those who might be unfamiliar with the word, a hallucinogen is a drug that makes you hallucinate, makes you see, smell, hear, and even feel things that just don't exist. LSD is a great example of a pretty severe hallucinogen. It often makes the user see things in warped perspectives, common examples being walls melting or the sky falling. Well, okay, there's definitely similarities between shamanic practices and hallucinogenic effects, but LSD doesn't really sound like it makes you more knowledgeable. I mean, if someone came off LSD having seen basically melting objects, how would they use that to help people? Well, that's the second good question you've asked. I'll explain that too. LSD isn't the only hallucinogen, and the hallucinations it induces aren't the only ones out there either. Some are way more chaotic, some are way more orderly, and some are just weird. Insightful, maybe, but weird. Throughout history, shamans have used mostly natural hallucinogens, like mushrooms and certain other plants, to induce hallucinations, thinking the substance was actually sending them to another realm, or giving them hyper-awareness of the physical realm. Some of these plants in particular, commonly used by Native Americans, had a very interesting effect. Used as a rite of passage from new shamans, plants like the ayahuasca often induced hallucinations of death and rebirth. People who underwent the shamanic rite of passage in this way often reported seeing themselves decay, be born again, and then grow back into their adult forms. Many even reported, and still report, the ability to commune with dead ancestors in order to seek guidance. Sound familiar? Okay, so the ancestral plane is looking a lot like just a hallucination, but there's one difference. Going to the ancestral plane actually helped Black Panther understand the world better. How would a hallucinogenic drug do that? For that, we can look to psychology. Psychology in dreams, that is. Famous psychologists like Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud theorized that dreams weren't always just random scenarios your brain thought of while sleeping, but instead were actually situations that were metaphors for real-life issues the dreamer was facing. This idea actually has some real weight to it. Many people report that a dream seems like it's metaphorically, or maybe even directly, linked to their real-life problems. The Freud-Jung idea was that dreams were the human subconscious, which usually knew what might be done to fix something, presenting a possible solution to the conscious while sleeping was taking place. Especially with the hallucinogens that do make you more aware of your surroundings, as some do, it isn't hard to imagine that a lot of these substances not only put you in a dreamt-up place, but they put you in a dreamt-up place you've dreamt up. A place in your psyche where you know the issues that are facing you, and you know possible solutions, and your subconscious tries to present those solutions to you in ways that you can understand. Maybe like a wise old ancestor who's been in your position before and can give you advice. So, sorry fancy mysticism, but it looks like the ancestral plane isn't in the spirit world. In fact, it's not exactly a place in the real world either. It's your own mind trying to comprehensively show you what to do. Keep in mind, I'm not condoning the use of hallucinogens. If you take away anything from this video, take away some history, some psychology, and maybe take away some ideas about how to be more mindful without the use of drugs. Don't be uncool. Hey guys, I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Science Behind Superheroes. This is the official comeback. I was actually really excited while recording this. I felt very good. My mouth's a little bit dry, but that's alright. I'm getting over a cold. And yeah, I thought this was a really interesting subject to look at. I actually did a project on this for a school not too long ago. Well, like a year ago, but that's not too long ago. And when I learned that Black Panther had the ancestral plane in the movie, I just thought this would be a perfect video. And so here it is. I hope you guys enjoyed, and take a look for more stuff to come in the future. Till then, stay tuned.